you doing, Dan?
Hello,
Hello.
Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
Good. Just so you know, we are live streaming because we have plenty of adjustment as soon as you're ready.
Are you ready to go?
In one moment.
Wow, there you go.
Okay, we
Okay.
are unmuted and ready to go.
Ready to go? Okay, good evening, everyone. And it is, I don't even know what time it is, 6:45, and I will call this meeting to order. It is Committee of Adjustment for February the 1st, 2024. I would ask for any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Seeing none, I would look for adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting. Megan, do you want to take the opportunity to read the minutes out this time, or excuse me, the motions out?
Sure can, Your Worship. We have a motion that reads that the
Thank you.
minutes from the Committee of Adjustment meeting held December 7th, 2023 be approved as presented.
Okay, do we have any errors or omissions? Is everyone comfortable? And if so, can I have a mover and seconder, please? Just a show of hands would be good. Deputy Mayor Weisler, excuse me, Committee Member Weisler and Committee Member Emerson, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Brings us to application, minor variance application A0124 Walker, 41 Strawn Street. The purpose of this variance is to grant relief from the following zoning bylaw regulations for development of a detached garage on the subject property located at 41 Strawn Street, Port Burwell. Section 10.10 to permit a minimum rear yard depth of 1.2 meters, whereas 7 meters is currently permitted. Section 10.11C to permit a maximum floor area of 88.5 square meters, whereas 75 square meters is currently permitted for accessory buildings and structures. The effect of this variance will permit new accessory structure, detached garage, on the subject property with a reduced minimum rear yard depth and permit an increased maximum floor area. This time, we will entertain the staff presentation. That is report DS 0424 by Margaret Underhill, Secretary Treasurer, regarding the Committee of Adjustment minor variance A0124 Walker, 41 Strawn Street. Good evening, Marg.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee. I would also note at this time, if anyone is in attendance for this meeting, we have a sign-in sheet at the podium.
Yeah. Marg, if I could comment, it's awfully hard to hear you.
I will breathe right into the microphone. I will.
There we go. Better.
Okay, thank you. All right, committee, this report is before you to consider a minor variance, as has already been read, the purpose and effect for a detached garage to be placed closer to the rear lot line and an oversized structure. The Committee of Adjustment has to be satisfied that the application meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act for a minor variance to the zoning bylaw. The planner's memorandum dated January 18, 2024 outlines the full analysis of the tests and the variances that are required. To note, email correspondence was received from a neighboring property owner with concerns re drainage and potential flooding issues. Staff reviewed this information, took this into consideration, and recommend the following: that the rear yard setback be increased from the 1.2 meters that is actually being requested in the application to 3 meters to provide room for a drainage swale that may be required. Number 2, recommending that an approved engineered grading plan, including the detached garage, is required prior to the issuance of a building permit for the dwelling and the detached garage. And the third item is the owner includes garage eaves troughs and downspouts on the building plans, demonstrating that water is not directed towards the rear property line prior to the issuance of a building permit. Staff and planner concur the application meets the criteria, recommends a revised minor variance to section 10.10 with the conditions listed in the recommendation to provide relief under section 45 of the Planning Act to permit the construction of a detached garage in the rear yard. I will note here that these changes have been, or I should say not changes, these recommendations have been discussed with the agent on behalf of the applicant, and they are in agreement with these recommendations. So I leave it with you, Mr. Chair, for the committee's consideration.
Thank you for that report, Mark. Appreciate it. Are the applicants or agents present, and do they wish to make a presentation?
They are present.
Do they wish to
Nope.
make a presentation, or are they fine?
They are fine, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any public submissions?
Mr. Chair, the only public submission was included with the report as an attachment.
Thank you. Okay, let's open it up to committee questions and discussion. Does anyone have any questions, any comments, concerns? Councillor Froese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So does the public concern, does it become part of the recommendation? Is that going to be part of the 3 meters instead of the 2.5 or whatever it was?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the recommendation from staff is that even though the application requested a 1.2 meter setback from the rear lot line, staff is recommending the committee consider 3 meters to provide the extra room. So that would be part of the variance approval.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Again, we have a motion before us for the decision. Megan, just because of the fact that I'm not present, I would ask that perhaps you read them this evening.
Yes, I can do that. We have a
Thank you.
motion that reads that the Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer reports DS 0424 regarding the Walker minor variance be received, and that the Committee of Adjustment consider all written and oral submissions received on this application, the effect of which helps the committee to make an informed decision. And whereas the committee agrees that the proposed variance as presented meets section 45.11 of the Planning Act and is considered minor, therefore, application A0124 submitted by Lisa and Scott Walker pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act for a minor variance is granted to allow relief from Municipality of Bayham zoning bylaw number Z456 2003. Section 10.10 to permit a minimum rear yard depth of 3 meters, whereas 7 meters is currently permitted. Section 10.11C to permit a maximum floor area of 88.5 meters squared, where 75 meters squared is currently permitted for accessory buildings and structures in the R1 zone. Conditions: that an improved engineered grading plan, including the detached garage, is required prior to the issuance of a building permit for the dwelling and detached garage. And number 2, that the owner includes garage eaves troughs and downspouts on the building plans demonstrating that water is not directed towards the rear property line prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Okay, having heard the motion, is anyone interested in moving and seconding that motion? Councillor Emerson will move. Deputy Mayor, excuse me, I should have said Committee Member Emerson will move, and Committee Member Weisler will second. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Brings us to the adjournment motion.
Motion reads that the Committee of Adjustment meeting for consideration of minor variance application A0124 be adjourned at 6:55 PM. And that in accordance with the regulations of the Planning Act, notices of decision be circulated by the Secretary Treasurer accordingly.
Okay, mover and seconder, please. Committee member Weisler and committee member Emerson. Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We stand adjourned.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll put us on mute for a few minutes.
Thank you.
Your worship, we have 7 o'clock here and we're ready when you are.
Thank you very much. Okay, good evening, everyone. It is 7 p.m. Thursday, February the 1st, 2024, regular council meeting of Bayham Municipality, and I call the meeting to order. I would remind members of any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Section 3, review of items not listed on the agenda. I don't see any noted.
There's no items tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any announcements from council members? Seeing none, we have no presentations. This evening we have delegations, Mike Kirkleaf and Ella Kravitz from the Small Business Enterprise Center. And I welcome them this evening. I apologize for not being there in present, but I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Ketchelbaugh. So as I was introduced, my name is Mike Kirkfleet. I'll stoop towards the mic, but if you need me to talk louder or anything, just let us know. I work for St. Thomas Economic Development, and in that role, I manage the Small Business Enterprise Center, which is a partnership between St. Thomas EDC and Elgin County Economic Development. It's a program funded by the province, and we provide small business supports across Elgin County, within St. Thomas and across the county. So our purpose in coming and talking to everybody today is just to kind of make everybody aware of the services we provide. We want to, we serve the whole county, and we've got clients that we're going to talk about from Bayham. But we are interested in kind of getting ourselves a bit more intertwined into this community and in the rest of the communities in Elgin County. So we want to make you guys aware of what we do and how we do it. And then we want you to talk to your small business people and tell them to come talk to us, because we've got a lot that we can offer to help them. Next slide.
So my name's Elle Kravitz, and I get to be one of the business advisors that works with all the many businesses we have here in our community. So I wanted to just run down briefly what our programs are that we offer, to give you an idea of the direct support that we're able to provide to businesses. So the first is our Starter Company Plus program. This is, again, what we said, a provincially funded grant program. So we get to fund 16 businesses across St. Thomas and Elgin each year with up to $5,000 in funding. We've seen a lot of great success out of this program and a lot of amazing businesses starting or expanding. So I think there's often a conception that you need to do it at the beginning, but we can also support people that are looking to grow through this program. We have our Summer Company program, which is a student grant program. So anyone who's returning to school in the fall, whether that be college or university or high school, we can help them start their business over the summer. A really great program to inspire entrepreneurs and have people really step into entrepreneurship as a long-term career opportunity. And we've seen businesses go on to hire many employees and continue many years later from that program. Again, provincially funded. Lastly, we have the last one I'll talk about for a second is our Foodpreneur Advantage. This is a regional partnership with SBECs, or small business centers, across Southwestern Ontario, where we bring industry leaders on developing consumer packaged good businesses to support the growth of manufacturing in that sector. And so we've seen a lot of great businesses go through that. We've actually just allocated some of our Starter Company Plus grants specifically to this niche, especially with our food roots here in Elgin County. We want to invest in that agri-food business, and we're seeing a lot of really cool businesses come out of that program as well too.
I quickly want to mention the Horton Farmers Market. So the Horton Farmers Market is something we're super lucky to have in St. Thomas. It's right in the core of St. Thomas. If you haven't visited, I'd encourage you to come out on just about every Saturday morning of the year now. It used to just run through the sort of regular market season in the summer, but we now run it through the winter as well. And I actually forget the year. I think it was founded in like 1857 or something like that. Super old property, donated by the original owners to the city with like a clause on title saying it can only be used as a farmer's market. So like it is and will be a farmer's market forever. This is something that for a long time was run by a committee of council in St. Thomas. And in COVID, that management structure sort of faltered, and they asked us if we wanted to take over management, and we have. And so since 2021, we've more than doubled receipts that farm vendors have generated from the Horton Farmers Market. We've added now a winter market. We're going to pilot, hopefully, as long as we get buy-in, a Wednesday night market this year as well. So our goal being to provide an outlet for agricultural businesses in the area to have like a value-added option where they can direct retail or they can make some other sort of product that they can sell. and have a viable way to keep their businesses sustainable and grow their businesses. That's sort of a passion for me. I grew up on a dairy farm in Southwold, so I love to be part of the farmers market. We are also this year working on putting a commercial kitchen into the market as well. So lots of our farm vendors and just other food entrepreneurs in general, one of their biggest barriers is finding a kitchen that they can actually use to get their business going. So this will be a kitchen that they can sort of rent as needed, either during market days to sort of try things out to people walking around the market. But also if they want to do production, they can rent it through the week. They can rent it in the middle of the night if they want. Maybe they work shift work or something, who knows? And we're also going to do food education. So we'll do like sort of like youth focused, how to cook, nutrition stuff. We're going to try to partner with growing chefs, things like that. So very excited about that project. Just to sort of talk about the funding mix currently of how our center is set up. We get $255,000 a year from the province, $110,000 of which is grant funding. So a lot of that money goes directly out into the community. From the city of St. Thomas, largely because of our staff structure and some of us who contribute significant time to the center are on the city's books. The city puts in about $145,000 a year. Elgin County puts in $50 a year, and then we get about $30 of other funding. A lot of that is like revenue and sponsorship for events, things of that nature. Next slide.
So in 2023, we have 2 full-time business advisors, and together we did 760 individual one-on-one small business consults, working with businesses to provide them direct support for their unique stage, business type, and their goals, their unique goals. So we get to work really directly with them, and we helped 91 businesses get started. We created 254 jobs from those businesses, and we distributed $110,000 in grants. And these numbers are great, but what's better than numbers is stories. So I'm going to go to the next slide. I want to tell you about a client that I worked with for a number of years. We started working together in 2021. Family business, Howie Line Forestry, is out in Eden. And it's been a traditional forestry business, but the 2 children of this business, Benson and Hannah, both have aspirations of taking on this family business, but doing it with a unique modern spin. So Benson is more interested in the wood product, and Hannah is more interested in taking on a Christmas tree farm. So they're both working to plan for succession and to create those businesses for themselves out of this existing business, helping us to sustain this business here in this community and also provide them opportunities. So we work directly with these folks, and we see them over years, over time, and we get to help them create jobs and create sustainable operation for that family business.
So that's the meat of our presentation for this evening. Really what we want to do at this point is actually kind of leave you with a question, which is sort of to say, what can we offer to your municipality? Like, what gaps do you feel there are? What services do you feel that we could sort of better provide, better deliver? And we want to kind of gather as much of this as we can from all the municipalities in our catchment area and come up with ways that we can further increase the impact that we have across the county and improve the level of service for what we deliver. We're interested and open to your input and your questions.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Al. It was an interesting presentation. Of course, the advantage of when you're at the county, you tend to know more what's going on with the SPEC program. And I certainly congratulate you on bringing this through to our local municipal partners. Thank you for that. I'm going to ask council now if they have any particular questions. And I just want to remind them that the services from SPEC do extend into businesses across Elgin County, including Bayham, as per the example that was shown tonight. So any questions? Deputy Mayor Weisner.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's very informative. Just a quick question. The grants that you offer, can you just give me an example of what that would include?
So we really focus on not just the funding, but also the training, mentorship, and connections that come with working with the SPEC. So we provide what I always say is a wraparound support for that business and whatever they're taking on, whether that's starting a brick and mortar or expanding their product lines, getting the right equipment. It can be a lot of things to a lot of businesses. And it's it's pretty exciting to see how people are using it, but often they are also putting money in themselves. So we recognize that $5,000 in grant funding is not going to change a lot for a lot of people, but it is sort of that ticket of confidence, and it is that vote of, yes, we have your back, and yes, we want to support you. So we wrap that around with promotion, opportunities to connect, events, tickets, connections, mentors, all of the above. So.
And just to add quickly to that, if you're interested in kind of like the nitty gritty of what that looks like. So for the Starter Company Plus program, it's a $5,000 grant. And the application process is in the form of a business plan. So they work with us to develop a business plan. We support them through that process to the extent they need. That then goes before a grant review committee that approves these grants. For the most part, once we've put you through our ringer, you're going to get through the grant review committee, but that process is there. And they get 3/4 of that up front, so $3,750. And then once they've met a milestone that we set as sort of like an indication that they've committed to the business and are moving forward, then they get the last quarter of that. For the Summer Company program, they get $1,500 at the beginning and $1,500 at the end. That's a experience-based program is what the province likes to call it. So that $1,500 at the end isn't contingent on success of their business. They get that for staying a participant in the program.
Excellent. Supplementary, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So, and again, thank you very much. Do you offer any in-house training in terms of if someone's interested in starting a business? I know the Business Resource Center, do you partner with them at all in Elgin County?
We do, yeah. So we
Okay.
both, on the advisement front, we both offer slightly overlapping services, and there are plenty of clients that access advisement from us both. In general, the difference being we sort of have grant-based funding and they're more of a loan entity.
Right.
And so you tend to see that we'll get a few more of the like really early stage startups, and they'll get a few more of the, we're a bit further down the road. We need a little bit more money to take it to the next step. We do offer workshops, and I'll let Elle talk a bit about what the workshops are that we offer. She knows better than me. But the core of what we offer is a one-on-one service. So a lot of the time, so people might not know exactly what they don't know. And so we can like sit down, walk them through the process, and we can be educators in that context. We can also be kind of a sounding board, depending on what someone's doing. Sometimes we're the ones that have to ask challenging questions. We want to see everyone start a business that can, but if we genuinely think it's going to be a terrible idea, we'll tell you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, all stages is what I'll say is
Yeah.
it's everything from exploring an idea, I don't know what to do with this, I don't know if this is something, to selling a business or planning for succession. We really work with businesses at all stages, and the one thing that's really great about where we sit in the mix of services is that we don't do loans. And part of advising is coming from that place of genuine, I'm here for you. And I think that's an important aspect too, that people get that advice from a place that's not going to benefit from whatever we tell you to do, which is very important.
Thank you so much for that. Just one more follow-up through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Where can we find your information? Because I will say in BAM, we have some wonderful entrepreneurs that have some great ideas, but sometimes, like you said, they just don't know where to go to start. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity for them to have an ally and to reach out. We have some wonderful storefronts that are empty that we'd love to see full. So this would be a really great opportunity for them. So
I have a business card for everybody here. I'll pass them out before I go. But in general, our website is a good place for people to start. It has information on our programs and contact information for all of our staff and our advisors. So that is specinnovation.ca. So we can follow up as well, have that circulated.
thank you.
Okay, any additional questions from anyone? All right, seeing none. Again, I want to thank you, Mike. I want to thank you, Ella, for coming down tonight. It was fantastic to have you present. Again, I congratulate you for getting out amongst the local municipal partners and promoting the SPEC program. And that's the best way to actually improve uptake. It's just letting it be known. So thank you. I believe, Megan, we have a resolution.
Motion reads that the delegation from Mike, I apologize, Kirk Vliet, okay, and L. Kravitz
Kirkleet.
regarding Small Business Enterprise Center be received for information.
Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Weiser will move. Councilor Froese will second. All in favor? I see that as carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on with the agenda, section 7. All right, section 7, we have adoption of the minutes of the previous meetings, which include the regular council meeting held January the 18th, 2024, and a statutory planning meeting held January the 18th, 2024. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, Megan, I'd ask you to read the motion, please.
Motion reads that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held January 18th, 2024, and the minutes of the statutory planning meeting held January 18th, 2024 be approved as presented.
Do we have a mover and seconder, please? Okay, Councilor Emerson and Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Brings us down to section 11, physical services, emergency services. 11.2, reports to council. We have a report PS 0124 by Ed Rollison, manager of capital projects, wastewater operations regarding the 2023 annual drinking water and compliance summary reporting, BAM, and Richmond Water Systems. Ed, are you present this evening?
Good evening, Your Worship.
How are you?
I am very pleased to be here this evening. And the reason for that is I bring a very favorable report for both the BAM and Richmond Water Systems. So without further ado, members of council, Your Worship, the report this evening is in fact bringing the 2023 annual drinking water and compliance summary reports for the BAM and Richmond system. These are legislated reports required by MECP on an annual basis, with a focus on water quality for both the BAM and Richmond system. So I'd like to move right into the attachments of the report. Have copies here of the submittal to the ministry that, and I'll just briefly summarize the report with the BAM system with a brief system description, discusses the, this is a standalone distribution system, talks about expenses incurred over the year, talks about from both an operating and capital perspective, which just as a reminder, we had the green stream funding for the Vienna water system that we successfully replaced 129 service lines. And I will speak to that success in one of the other attachments, specifically with the flows. Page 3 of that attachment talks about water quality in terms of any bacteria, the testing that was done, free chlorine residuals. The next section talks about organics and inorganics that are not tested for the BAM system, because this is done at source at the water treatment plant, the Elgin area water plant. And as we're moving on, I would like to go to the next attachment, which is entitled the summary report for the municipal drinking water system for BAM. And here again, a regulatory report specifically talks about compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act, Ontario Reg 173 and Ontario Reg 128. Reg 128 is the licensing of our operators, as well as the system waters, the system license and permit. Those are our guiding documents as we operate the system. The final section here for the BAM system is a summary of the flows. And I would like to draw to council's attention, if I could just go back to my earlier comment about the success of our Vienna Water Project. We look at the far right side in 2023 with the totals. We break down Port Oral and Vienna, and then the total that actually comes into our community, which is registered at which is called the Lakeview meter station, which is located at Nova Scotia Line and Richmond Road, the boundary between BAM and Malahide. In comparison, from 2023 to 2022, significant number, significant showings there, both from the water project as well as numbers in Vienna. Operation staff have been very diligent in dealing with water loss and leaks. And we're very pleased to report to council. Here are the results, and a very, very successful year for the BAM water system in terms of water recovery, water accountability, consistency in water quality and treatment. So, Your Worship, if I could, I'd like to move on to the Richmond system.
Please do, Ed.
The next attachment is, in fact, the Richmond system. The Richmond system is a groundwater system, as we know, that has both water treatment and water distribution. Like the BAM system, Richmond has performed very well. Breakdown of operating expenses, a breakdown of the parameters, much different type of testing for the source water there in Richmond, as well as the treated and distribution. Again, it's done very well. Page 4 of that report is a summary of the organic and inorganic testing, which is actually, we may ask, the last sample date was in 2020. This is every 5-year cycle, so we're up for this large gamut of testing next year for the Richmond system. And moving on will be the next attachment, which is the summary report. Again, full compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act, Reg 170, and the licensing. And then finally, we have the final attachment, which is a summary of the flows. And again, we can see over the past number of years, Richmond continues to be very consistent. With that, Your Worship, I'm open for any questions. Very pleased to be able to bring this favorable report before you this evening.
Thank you very much, Ed, for bringing those reports forward. We're very pleased, and I congratulate you and your staff on maintaining a high standard for the residents of BAM and in our water systems. You mentioned the flow rates and the capture rates, more or less, I should say, from the Vienna and Port Oral systems. And I would assume that you've noticed a marked difference once you replace the service lines in Vienna itself, that the level of capture has actually shown an improvement. And I'm just looking for you to confirm that. I'm not looking for you to tell me what the percent of capture we have tonight, but
yeah,
I could do the math myself, but I'm remote at the moment.
Absolutely. The capture rates have been phenomenal. Some of the best numbers that we've seen in many, many years. The Vienna system is doing very well, and we're confident that it'll be very reliable for many years to come.
Thank you for that, Ed. I certainly appreciate it. Does any member of council have any comments or questions for Mr. Rollison? Well, that's pretty good. Again, a well-written report. Yeah, thank you for that, Ed.
If I could,
yes, please.
We are currently, as you mentioned, comments and congratulate. Kudos to council for endorsing the water systems and the work that we do. We're you know, extremely measurable. That in fact, from a financial perspective, as well as a compliance perspective, we've done very well with the annual inspections by the Ministry of the Environment. We're currently under inspection as we speak on the BAM system, and Richmond will be under inspection next Tuesday. So, yeah, and we're confident that we'll be bringing favorable reports forward in the coming months.
Thank you for that, Ed. Have every confidence in it. Silence prevails. I assume everyone's satisfied, so that's fantastic. Megan, could we have the motion, please?
Motion reads that report PS 0124 regarding 2023 annual drinking water and compliance summary reporting, BAM and Richmond water systems be received for information.
We have a mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Weiser will move. Councillor Emerson will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on with section 12. Correspondence 1211 to receive for information. Several pieces. We have item A, notice of passing of Shaw regarding, Shaw and Shipway zoning bylaw amendment. Item B, notice of public meeting regarding the Walker proposed minor variance. C, notice of public meeting regarding Silverthorne proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Item D, notice of public meeting regarding Wayne and Underhill proposed zoning bylaw amendment. E, notice of public meeting regarding Wall proposed zoning bylaw amendment. F, notice of public meeting regarding the Graham proposed zoning bylaw amendment. And item G, notice of public meeting regarding Underhill Farms Limited proposed official plan amendment. Does anyone have any questions regarding these pieces of correspondence? Seeing none, can we have the motion, please?
That items 12.11A through G be received for information.
Do we have a mover and seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Weiser will move. Councillor Froese will second. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Brings us to 12.2, reports to council. We have report DR 0224 by Steve Adams, Manager of Public Works, Drainage Superintendent, regarding the 2023 fourth quarter drainage report. Is Steve available this evening? There he is.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council.
And how are you?
Good, thanks. So the report before you is the fourth quarter drainage report for 2023. I'll give you a brief overview. It was a busy fourth quarter, maybe partially due that we didn't have very much winter weather. However, starting off with the new drains, as you know, the Hampton drain, it was completed to about 90%. There's a bit of topsoil that has to be moved around. That was a very successful installation. Very happy with the contractor, so that was good to get it off our books and move forward. It's the Peter Drain extension we'll see later tonight. There is a small error there. The report was filed on December 8th, not December 21st. So
Okay.
We'll talk about that a little later. And you can see the other two Spreets have on file right now, working on the plans. And then we did have 3 new submissions there later in the fall. One in the Vienna Ridge subdivision, 1128 Properties Inc. and Frank Wall. Those 3 are currently in process, so working on site meetings for a couple of them. And then we jump into the drain maintenance. There's lots of different drain maintenance started, some was completed. Generally, it was small maintenance items, sinkholes, pipe bursts. Couple inspections I did, I found just a lack of maintenance. So some of these have been completed since the report actually came out. So no, it's been pretty good moving into this quarter this year with the storm last week. We're going to add probably about a dozen to this for the next report. So it's it'll be a busy winter if the weather stays the way it is this week. So if there's any questions about any of these, I'll be happy to help.
Thank you for that report, Steve. Yes, there's been a lot of activity, a lot of drainage work. Well, you expect it in a wet year. Does any member of council have any questions for Mr. Adams? Deputy Mayor Weisler.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment, if I may, to you, Steve. I of course live around the corner from the Hampton Drain, and I was able to see that process and just have to congratulate you and your team. I know you were on site for most of that repair, and I think they did a phenomenal job. So just concurring with your comment earlier that it was an excellent work.
Thank you. Yes, actually feedback was really good from the property owners as well. So it was a good installation.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for that. Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, again, thank you, Steve, for the excellent report. Shall I have the motion, please?
That report DR 0224 regarding 2023 fourth quarter drainage report be received for information.
Okay, do we have a mover and seconder, please? I have Councillor Emerson and Deputy Mayor Weisler will second. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Item B, we have report DS 0524 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding the rezoning application ZBA 1323 Macaloni 11593 Plank Road. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening again, Your Worship. So the report before you for rezoning of a property at 11593 Plank Road in Eden. The purpose of the amendment is to change the zoning on a property from Hamlet Commercial to Hamlet Residential, to permit and recognize the existing standalone residential dwelling that's not supported by any commercial use. The effect of the bylaw will be to permit and recognize the continued use of this existing standalone residential dwelling. Public meeting was held January the 18th. There were no submissions. The planner's memorandum attached to the report provides an analysis of the zoning amendment application. Staff and planner concur that the rezoning application does meet the policies and recommends approval to change the zoning from Hamlet Commercial to Hamlet Residential.
Mm-hmm.
And the recommendations before you, Your Worship, for council's consideration.
Thank you very much for that report, Mark. Any questions from council members? Okay. I certainly do appreciate the remarks from the planner on this, and in fact, it's treated more as a housekeeping, correcting a property and bringing it up to date. If there are no further questions, Megan, I would ask for the motion, please.
That report DS 0524 regarding the Macaloni rezoning application ZBA 1323 be received for information, and that pursuant to Planning Act Regulations Bill 73, Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015, it be pointed out that at the public participation meeting held January 18th, 2024, associated with this application, there were no written submissions and no oral presentations received regarding this matter, and that all considerations were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution, and that zoning bylaw number Z456/2003 as amended be further amended by changing the zoning on a property located at 11593 Plank Road in the hamlet of Eden from Hamlet Commercial HC to Hamlet Residential HR, and that zoning bylaw number Z768/2024 be presented to council for enactment.
Okay, do we have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Weisler? Councillor Emerson will second. Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Brings us to item C, Report DS 0624 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding the revised subdivision agreement. 1985763 Ontario Inc. Sandytown subdivision. Mark, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to council. The report before you is to address a subdivision agreement that was previously approved. However, following council's approval, the subdivision agreement was circulated to the owner's lawyer, and there were some items identified as being missing from the agreement, as well as an incorrect M plan. So discussions did take place between the legal representatives for both Mr. Wall and the municipality, with the following agreed upon revisions made to the agreement that are included in the report. So the revisions are listed. All of us concur that these changes do have to be made to the agreement, and it then can be a registrable document. So we're recommending that instead of presenting an amending bylaw to approve amendments, that council approve draft bylaw 2024-005 to approve the revised subdivision agreement in its entirety between the municipality of Bayham and 1985763 Ontario Inc., and to repeal bylaw number 2023-092, which was the authorizing bylaw passed in December. It provides a cleaner approach by repealing and passing new, so that the agreement is one intact document for registration. And I'll leave it with you, Your Worship.
All right, thank you for that, Mark. Does anyone have any questions? Just one for you, Mark, and I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Does the revision or revised bylaw as approved change the start and end dates for any subdivision agreement we have? Essentially, it does, doesn't it?
Well, the agreement,
Moves them.
sorry, through Your Worship, the agreement tonight, if approved by council, the next step is to have it registered, but it does not change any of the information concerning the required securities or timelines.
Thank you very much. Good. Okay, back to council. Any further questions, concerns? Megan, if you would, please.
That report DS 0624 regarding the subdivision agreement 1985763 Ontario Inc. Draft plan of subdivision 34T BY2101 be received, and that council authorize the execution of a subdivision agreement between the municipality and 1985763 Ontario Inc. to permit the completion of the Sandytown subdivision in 2 phases with 39 lots at 8341 Sandytown Road in the village of Straffordville, and that council repeal bylaw number 2023-092, and that bylaw number 2024-005 be presented for enactment.
Do we have a mover and second for that bylaw? Thank you, Councillor Emerson. And I see Councillor Froese is willing to second. Perfect. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Brings us to section 13, Finance and Administration, 13.1 Correspondence, and 13.11 to receive for information. We have a number of items, so bear with me. Item A, the Town of Plimpton, Wyoming, regarding the prohibition of criminals from municipal council. Item B, Town of Plimpton, Wyoming, regarding the amendment to the Occupational Health and Safety Act to clarify the definition of employer. Item C, Township of Georgina Bluffs, regarding the Provincial Cemetery Management Support Request. D, Township of Georgian Bluffs, regarding the AMO Social and Economic Prosperity Review. E, City of Sarnia, regarding the carbon tax. F, Tay Township, regarding support for Bill C-310. G, Township of Greater Madawaska, regarding support for Bill C-310. H, Prince Edward County, regarding lifespan of fire apparatus. I, municipality of Tweed regarding license plate renewals. And item J, town of Orangeville regarding social and economic prosperity review. Does anyone have any item on this list of correspondence they wish to draw attention to, ask questions, support? All right, seeing none. Megan, please.
Motion reads that items 13.11A through J be received for information.
Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Emerson, Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? No? Okay, we got it. It's carried. 13.2, reports to council. Report CAO 0224 by Thomas Thayer, CAO, regarding the 6-month report, shared services, building and bylaw enforcement services. Thomas's, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is the first report to come to council as a part of the evaluation of our shared services. This is the 6-month benchmark. So this covers July through December of 2023. Council is aware that they entered into a shared service memorandum of understanding with Malahide to provide for building, planning, and bylaw services. In August of 2023, correspondence was received by Malahide to pause the planning component, which was approved by council. So further implementation continued with building and bylaw only. Council has received a number of reports in support of staff recruitment and implementation of the shared service. They're listed in the report. I won't go through them verbatim, but there are 6 noted, and there have been a couple of other reports since one Q4 2023 building report and a 2023 bylaw summary from the bylaw enforcement officer. Council has also considered the draft operating budget for 2024 and 2025 to date, and referred this budget back to staff in an attempt to save further costs and reduce notional levy tax increases for residents. So just a quick overview again, that building services as current is provided by 2 staff members. So 1 chief building official and 1 building inspector, deputy chief building official, and utilization of cloud permit as an e-permitting solution to allow for cross-jurisdictional collaboration. And bylaw enforcement is provided by 1 bylaw enforcement officer. Tenant Security Group was part of the original arrangement, but it has since been determined by the bylaw enforcement officer that a third party at this point in time is not required to provide service to both municipalities. So the meat of this report is intended to provide council with a snapshot of the first 6 months under the shared service arrangement, considering such components as service level and capacity and costs for BAM specifically. So since September 2021, it's worth noting that BAM's building services has gone through a number of changes, staff turnover due to retirement, temporary solution of having a code agency providing part-time support. So under the established memorandum of understanding, this is the first permanent solution for service delivery that we've had since mid-2021. So detailed internal breakdowns were provided by Malahide for the number of hours utilized over the second half of the year. So we utilized approximately 600 hours. To be exact, it's 597 3/4 hours. And the vast majority of these were staff. One of the concerns that council had brought up during a previous report was the use of a contractor and the added costs associated with contractor versus staff allocation. It's worth noting that since the hire of a deputy CBO to fill out the staffing component of the building department, no contractor hours have been utilized by the municipality of Bayham. So this is important because the RSM consultant hourly rate for inspections is $150 an hour, whereas the effective hourly rate billed to Bayham for staff support is $74.55 an hour. So this is a savings of over 50%. During discussions and ultimate support regarding costs, there was a concern about being either overbilled or underserved and the overall cost per hour not materializing. So on the fourth page of the report, there's a table that identifies the current shared service arrangement versus a couple of other staffing options that have either been utilized or could be utilized as a alternative. So it's worth noting that under the current demand for building services, there is no requirement for a full-time chief building official. A full-time chief building official would be approximately 2,080 hours a year, where right now we only use about 1,200 hours. That if that increases due to higher demand, we're looking at 1,300 or 1,400, which is well under the requirement of a full-time controlled CBO. We also, when it comes to code agency versus shared service and control internal staff, we run at approximately a 43 cent on the dollar savings per the hourly rate. So when comparing the two other options versus shared service, we're saving between 43 and 47 cents on the dollar, while having access to twice the number of staff, both controlled by the adjacent municipality providing service to the municipality of Bayham. So when considering the two goals of the shared service being an increase in service capacity and decrease in cost, the results to date tick both of those boxes. It's worth noting also that in the solution with an internal CBO, we would essentially be compensating for full vacation, sick, and lieu time allotments, which decreases the number of productive hours. We are not billed for any of those hours through the township of Malahide. So it is cost efficient, and it is an increase in human resources efficiency as well. It's worth noting that if Bayham were to shift away from this model, given the cost pressures that council is currently facing, and the direction to refer the budget back to staff, the expectation would be that there would be an approximate 1.1 to 1.3% tax levy increase by going with a different version of service delivery model for building services. So council should be considering this as well in the context of service level versus cost. The two additional benefits of building services worth noting are the ability to smooth out the peaks and valleys in service demand and the ability to avoid contracting out at a higher rate to cover absences. So for the first point, demand in the building department is not a constant. So there are periods of higher demand and periods of lower demand. And in a shared service where hours are purchased as needed, this allows Bayham to smooth these variations and only pay for the time needed to provide the service. Well, this would not be the case with an internal staff member. So any decrease in demand still means the municipality must compensate for standard salary benefits and absences. The second point with respect to avoiding contracting out is that with two accessible building staff, it is expected that in the case of vacation, sick, or other absence, each staff member would provide built-in backup to one another, which reduces and may completely eliminate the need for third party to backfill demand. In the case of an internal CBO, we only have access to one staff member, and if they are on vacation or absent for a prolonged period, we would have to look for backup at a far higher hourly rate. The final point with respect to building services I want to make note of is cloud permit. We have had cloud permit in place for the past 3 months. So this report covers the final 2 months of the year. So we implemented cloud permit as an e-permit platform to allow for building permit applications to be submitted digitally and remotely and allow for remote review. At the end of 2023, cloud permit had been active for 2 months. We had received 20 permit applications, and 90% of these were through cloud permit, which identifies that the e-permitting platform and costs outlaid to support the shared service across municipal borders is worthwhile, as it has had market uptake to date. Now, we have had some concerns about the service because it is a change. So it's worth noting these as well. And generally speaking, the comments and concerns that I've received fall into two categories. Perceived delay in permit issuance or perceived lack of communication between building staff and the applicant. It's worth noting that the Ontario Building Code identifies statutory timelines for building permit review, which vary depending on the type and complexity of an application. And the OBC requires that those acting in the capacity of a CBO ensure that these timelines are being adhered to. Based on the concerns raised to date and associated follow-up of building services staff, it appears that all statutory timelines are being adhered to. And with respect to complaints of perceived delayed permit issuance, there appears to be a misunderstanding with respect to these timelines and obligations. Staff are required to review a permit application within the timelines. This is going on. Where complaints arises when an application is deficient and requires additional information or clarification. And in these situations, a deficiency list is then provided back to the applicant to satisfy before a second review can occur. And the perceived delays appear to be occurring after such time as the deficiencies are then provided back to the applicant for submission and review. It's worth noting that in our new website, on our building services page, we have a lot of information regarding building permit requirements that outlines the 6 common types of building permit applications and what is generally required for these applications. But staff will continue to investigate general methods for providing more comprehensive information to assist in mitigating these concerns. With respect to communication, BAM and Malahide hold regular monthly check-ins for building and/or bylaw staff per the memorandum of understanding. And in discussion with Malahide building staff and senior administration, the general expectation for turnaround of an inquiry is 24 hours, which is a business day or generally 8 business hours. In some instances where a lack of communication and response is the primary focus of the complaint, staff have either responded within the identified threshold or the 24-hour threshold has yet to be reached, and yet we are still hearing a complaint. But the expectation for this service is a 24-hour turnaround. This is very standard across the municipality and municipalities in general. Currently, we have no concerns about this level of service, but if we do have an instance brought to our attention where staff are regularly missing their timelines, then we will be addressing that during our regular check-ins. I won't speak as much about bylaw enforcement because council has already received that report at the last meeting. So for the first 6 months of the shared service, the division of service hours between Malahide and BAM is approximately 66 to 34%, with BAM being the 66, Malahide being the 34. And this aligns well with the complaint volume percentages between the two municipalities, which are 63 and 37%, or 101 versus 60 actual complaints handled by the bylaw enforcement officer, demonstrating a consistent allocation of time relative to the number of complaints received. The report BL 0124 that council received at the last meeting outlines some statistics that demonstrate that service capacity and service level have indeed increased. Our complaint file closure rate in BAM has improved to 86%. This compares to 50 in 2022 and 83 in 2021. The response speed and days to close a file have also improved substantially, in some cases more than 50%, again, demonstrating that increase in service level. And this level of service increase is expected in this situation, given that the number of controllable hours has increased. Under the previous model, the fire chief, as a secondary duty, was doing bylaw enforcement at approximately 500 to 550 hours a year. With a current full-time bylaw enforcement officer, we project about 1,250 hours for 2024. So this is an increase of approximately 700 hours over the previous service delivery model, which allows for greater attention to delicate bylaw files and utilization of value-add skills that the bylaw enforcement officer provides, such as utilizing his paralegal skill set to offset some legal costs that we would normally incur for basic files. Where possible, he's also able to provide these services to Malahide, so they receive a similar value-add service. We've also been able to allow the third-party arrangement with the third-party contractor to expire. And this will allow us to save on contracting hours that we can then repurpose through the bylaw enforcement officer through flex time, particularly in the summer, to address such seasonal matters as beach and parking enforcement. And finally, on this one, to ensure a holistic review of the service from BAM, we wanted to ensure that the feedback from the Township of Malahide was being taken into account. So we reached out to 4 different members of their staff to determine if there were any concerns or what their general thoughts were of the service provision to date. And all comments received were positive, citing performance and results over and above expectations, positive reception by staff and council and broad practical knowledge that that we're able to provide Malahide in support of an enhanced bylaw service for them as well. So in sum, I just note that the costs overall when netting out building and bylaw, it's net savings to the municipality of Bayham, which is equivalent to approximately 0.6% on the levy in a given year, which is not insignificant given the other cost pressures that we have. And being able to participate in this memorandum of understanding with quantifiable benefits to both municipalities is really the overarching intent. And it is also worth noting that what this allows us to do is strengthen our relationship with the adjacent municipality in case there is the chance for future collaboration. Final point is that this isn't the only shared service that we have. This may be the one that we have that's the largest, but we have historically had GIS services through Malahide, and we do partner with Elgin County, and they provide us with IT, human resources, and legal, and also collaborate with us on emergency management. So it is worth noting that being able to leverage these agreements, utilize capacity of other municipalities to look for creative ways to provide service, either at an enhanced capacity or at a decreased cost, does come at a benefit not only from a service delivery perspective, but from a budgetary perspective as well, particularly as we address such matters as the lighthouse and the Ojibwa debt. And as this report is a 6-month overview, it is to receive for information at this time. And Mr. Mayor, I will leave it with you and council to discuss.
All right, thank you very much for that report, Thomas. It was comprehensive and inclusive. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions regarding this report? Any concerns?
That's for you, Mr. Mayor. Like, there's too many.
Yes, please, Councilor Emerson.
There's like too many people that, like, maybe the guidelines and that are being received or they're being followed for response time and everything, but not phone calls. There's too many people telling me they can't get the bill inspector to call them back. It's not frivolous. It's like through clients I work with and everything. So there is a communication issue. Like maybe we save some money, maybe we did this. And there is businesses that really thought they had, and organizations thought that they had everything in order, but they find out last minute, because I have, with your worship, corrected and last minute stuff. So that's a glowing report, I guess, but the evidence maybe doesn't support everything that you're saying. Or
Yeah.
I don't understand when people call and they can't get a response. I know I can name names if you want. I know 2-week response to get a phone call.
Councilor Emerson, yeah, I was just going to suggest that if there's if you have names and things and you want to slide back through to the CAO, let them investigate and find through, but we are in a service delivery business, and if people feel that they're not getting the proper service, then yeah, we'll report it through and have a follow-up take place. I'm not sure that that's what's going to bear fruit, but still, please, legitimate complaints we need to deal with. If I missed something there, will that work for you, Councillor?
Yeah, it works for me, but I think
Sure.
I brought them. Do they have to be written then, or
No, we need to know who and contacts, and so we can get a hold of them, find out what's going on.
Okay.
That's all. All right. Councilor Froze, I'm gonna cut you off in a minute because we got a drainage meeting, but we can come back. So please.
Councilor Froze, I believe you're muted.
Muted. Oh, boy.
Counselor Froze, you're muted.
Sorry, guys. So my question is, we pay for building services on a per hour basis, right? As required, as many building applications as come in. Is that correct?
Yes, we purchase building hours as needed from Malahide.
Okay, so we know our building, our requirements have, building permits that have been issued has been cut in half since like 2020 or less than half. I'm just curious what our billable hours would be if our numbers double or triple, which is very likely because we have subdivisions coming. So what will our billable hours be? Like, I know you put it very gracefully that we're saving money, but our building permits that are being issued is very minimal, right?
I think the point, and perhaps Thomas is better equipped to answer this than I am, but when you go from a code agency of paying 130 an hour versus 80 bucks an hour, it's a little obvious, but I'll let staff make that argument.
Yes, so there are likely going to be some subdivisions that are coming online within the next year. You've seen the one with Sandytown tonight getting approval, but a lot of these subdivisions, they require the in-ground infrastructure first, and they're phased. So one phase might be 13 houses in a year. There will likely be an increase, but I would reiterate that there was a staff report received last year. The number escapes me. I'm pretty sure it was 3623, if my memory serves, or 3723, I believe. When we were originally running the numbers with Malahide, they would be able to allocate to us, if required, approximately 1,700 building hours a year, with 2 staff members. So there's the ability to increase the capacity without running over capacity of the overall service by approximately 42%. So that does give us a little bit of headroom should we run into a situation where a developer is coming in with, say, 10 building permits for houses. But to offset this, it is expected that there'd be ongoing communication between our office and the developer to ensure that when they're coming forward with permits, they're staggered in a manner that it does not spike our capacity or a demand in a manner that would make it untenable. So that has been communicated to staff that we'll be doing that to sort of offset, but there is extra capacity in the service for us should we need it.
Okay. Council, if I may, we have a public meeting, a drainage meeting. So let's suspend discussions on this right now and let us go to the public meeting for drainage. So it is 8:03 according to my clock. And I'm going to call this public meeting to order and ask any of those in attendance for the drainage public meeting regarding this can't be the right one.
It's a typo, your worship,
It's a
sorry.
typo. It should be
Peters Drain, Branch D.
Thank you. Peters Drain. Branch B. That was B, right?
D as in dog.
Thank you. Branch D. Just sign in on the sheet provided. All right. Now I'll ask for any members to disclose of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. The purpose of this meeting, we're dealing with Peters Branch D public notice. Pursuant to section D17, section 41 of the Drainage Act. The purpose of the public meeting is to consider engineer's report 222225, which proposes construction of a new branch of the Peters Drain to be referred to as the Peters Drain Branch D, serving lots or parts of lot 6, concession 9 to municipality of Bayham. At this time, we'll entertain a staff report. That would be report DR 0324 by Steve Adams, Manager of Public Works, Drainage Superintendent, regarding the Peters Drain Branch D consideration report. Steve, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So yes, this public meeting is to consider the report, or consider the Peters Drain Extension D. So this petition was submitted July 21st, 2022 by the Community of Christ Church located at 54246 Eden Line, which is the corner of Eden Line and Cloden Road. to meet the drainage conditions to sever off two lots on the west side of the church building. So Spreeds provided the municipality with a report on December 6th, filed with the clerk on December 8th of 2023. This meeting to consider is to meet to consider the construction of the drain and give opportunity to the petitioner to the petitioner to withdraw from the petition or others, landowners in the area, to add their name to the petition. So the drain in general, it's a pretty simple drain. This starts on the west side of Cloden Road, and it runs 100 meters across Cloden Road, just to the back of the church property. It's a straight line. 5 new catch basins will be added. The surface water will be collected in those basins, and it will travel through an 8-inch pipe. Moving forward with this, if council directs the clerk to prepare the provisional bylaw, staff will send notice for the quarter revision on March 7th, the public meeting, at 8 p.m. of this year. At this time, we can talk about the assessments on the drain moving forward. If you have any further questions, I believe our municipal engineer is online. Myself or the municipal engineer can take any questions for the construction or the design of the drain. I should note, if we remember, I didn't mention it earlier, but just keep in mind this drain is fully funded by the, I guess in this case, the Community of Christ. They pay the cost for this drain to go in. So moving forward, this will be on them to proceed with the construction.
Your worship, you're muted.
Thank you for that. As I was asking, does any member of council have any questions regarding the design of the drain? I see any hands up? I think it is a relatively straightforward drain myself. Okay, seeing none. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to participate tonight?
Looks like we might have a couple attendees here. We'll just give them a sec to sign in.
Thank you.
My name's Jim Crane. I'm a landowner of the land behind the new houses that have been built over on the west side of Cloden Road over there. Anyway, on Eden Line. And I support this 100%. And I congratulate Bayham Township 100% for your progressive approach to doing this lot business. Because if you read the Elmer paper today, a little critical of my own township, Malai Township, not taking the approach you people do. And congratulations of this, because if you don't have new houses going in, you don't get a new tax base. So way to go, folks. You're doing a great job.
Thank you for your comments, Jim. Anyone else?
One more coming,
right.
your worship.
Oh, perfect.
So I'm just here trying to figure out the assessment part of it. Do I have to come back in March for that? There we go. All right, I'm done.
Perfect. See you next time, Joe. Okay, anyone else? All right, well, we're finishing off that part of it. Megan, is there any correspondence tonight?
No correspondence.
All right, are we ready to deal with the disposition?
Just one more thing, your worship. I did want to mention, I was going to mention at the end of the report. Yes, if any other landowners have any questions about the assessments, There's a little bit of confusion on, what's new and what's old on that. We did have to recirculate all the assessments because most of them were actually lowered. So, please contact me, contact the municipal office, and I'll respond as soon as possible.
Thank you for those comments, Steve. Thank you. All right, I think we're ready to dispose of this issue.
One more thing, your worship, just while Mr. Adams was presenting, on March 7th, we have a number of planning meetings starting at 7:30, I believe. So we might want to push that quarter revision to 8:30. Does
Good
that
enough.
sound like a good idea, Steve?
That sounds like a plan. Let's deal with it now. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a
Thank you.
motion that reads that report DR 0324 regarding Peters Drain Branch D consideration report be received for information, and that in accordance with sections 44 to 46 of the Drainage Act, that Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Bayonne hereby adopts Breeds Associates report number 2225 dated December 6, 2023, referred to as the Peters Drain Branch D report. And that provisional bylaw number 2024-004 be given a first and second reading, and that the clerk be directed to distribute copies of the provisional bylaw and notice of the time and place of the first sitting of the quarter revision to the affected parties pursuant to section 46(2) of the Drainage Act, and that a date of March 7th, 2024 at 8:30 p.m. be set for the first sitting of the quarter revision.
All right. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Emerson will move. Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you for that. We do the adjournment motion?
Sorry, your worship, we were talking over here. I was mistaken. All of those planning meetings are actually on the February 15th meeting, not March 7th. So we can keep it at 8 o'clock. Sorry about that.
Well, would Councillor Emerson and Deputy Mayor Weiser be amenable to the 8 o'clock sitting of the quarter revision?
I'm amenable, Mr. Mayor.
Same with me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, then change the motion accordingly, Megan. All right.
I have done that, your worship. And as well, after we adjourn, we have a request for a break if you're amendable to that or agreeable to that.
All right. So call the motion then, please.
That pursuant to the Drainage Act requirements, the public meeting is now complete at 8:12 p.m.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Emerson and Deputy Mayor Weiser. All in favor? Okay, we are carried, and I will call a recess.
Thank you.
But I'll stay within due hail as to come on in due time. There's no house, huh? All right. Oh, now what do we got? Yeah. Wow. Wow. No butters.
Your worship, we are all back if you want to resume.
Either that or I'm gonna go to sleep. So let's get at it. Okay, we will resume with our normal agenda. We stopped at 13.2, item A. Entertaining further discussion and questions on that item. Any further questions on 13.2A? Okay, seeing none, Megan, could you read the question, please?
That report CAO 0224 regarding 6-month report, shared services, building and bylaw enforcement services be received for information.
Do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor Emerson will move, Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? Okay, it's carried. Thank you. Item B, report CAO 0324, Thomas Thayer, CAO regarding Port Burwell Lighthouse status and costing update. Thomas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So council's received a number of these reports over the course of the last year, so I won't go into too much background. I'll actually just dive right into the discussion portion of the report. So there has been some ongoing discussion with A-Link, and we have had some discussion at the council level about the costs associated with rehabilitating the lighthouse. And we're aware that the Class D estimate provided by A-Link is $1.5 million approximately. So we've been looking at some ways to potentially reduce some of these costs within, the realm of possibility, given what is currently in that Class D estimate. So the report is broken down in this section to a few different areas. So the cladding and exterior envelope that deals with the clapboard and proposed weatherproofing on the inside. There's also consideration for some of the secondary items such as windows and doors, flashing and ventilation. And then the structure itself, which is the foundation and the wood superstructure where the majority of the structural issues are. So the exterior envelope, and all this breakdown is attached again to this report just for information purposes, is included with the addition of weatherproofing as noted. We did discuss some options with A-Link for alternative materials and the like. And the proposal that was provided to council considers replacing the clapboard as is with a similar material or like material. Council is aware that in 2022, there was an RFP to reclad the lighthouse that was issued and withdrawn, which would have permitted consideration of other options for cladding, an example of which is hardy board. So in discussion, it was advised that while an alternative like hardy board may be possible, should council choose to do so, hardy board and similar products tend to be heavier than clapboard, which would require increased bracing and structural considerations. So it is unlikely that there would be any appreciable cost savings in using an alternative cladding, even though that the material itself is likely a little bit cheaper. The added structural would offset that. So the estimated cost at this time are $165,000 plus contingency and HST. The second item noted would be windows and doors, flashing and ventilation. These are secondary in priority to components such as the exterior envelope and the structure. These could theoretically be removed from the scope as primary attention is directed elsewhere. The combined estimate for these items is $185,000, which could potentially be removed, plus HST and associated contingency for a potential cost savings of approximately $203,500. The majority of the costs in the estimate are for the structure itself. So this is the underground foundation, concrete base, wooden superstructure. This totals in the estimate $725,000, which is approximately 48% of the proposed works. The proposal provided by A-Link identifies a few potential approaches to the above ground structural rehabilitation, but the majority of the work requires addressing the below ground foundation. And in this regard, estimates are more difficult to refine and cost savings are more difficult to find without detailed engineering and construction drawings. So the current estimate is noted as Class D, which comes with a wider contingency. And so the overall, we can't really provide a cost saving on the structure without considering moving forward with components of the estimate, including pre-design, design, and at least a 50% completion of the construction drawings. That would bring the type of estimate from Class D to Class B. It would give us a better idea of the cost that we're actually looking at. The one catch here for that particular item is those three items combined, pre-construction or pre-design, design, and preparation of construction documents is in the quote at an estimated $91,880. That's for full construction drawings. If we went halfway, we're somewhere in the mid-70s. Now, the amount of money currently in the unaudited lighthouse reserve would not cover this money, this requirement. So the overage, should council wish to allocate and move forward with some of the design works and the construction documents to provide a better idea of what the cost is going to look like, that overage would have to come out of another reserve or would have to be applied to the municipality's 2024 financial position in another manner. Now, we're still, considering our operating budget. Capital is technically approved in principle, but it could be amended should council wish to do so and allocate some additional money. Both budgets are very lean, so incurring spending over current reserve levels may lead to a deficit in 24, just putting it out there, unless savings can be sought elsewhere. Overall, there is the option of reducing the cost by approximately 13% if the secondary items are removed. The revised estimate is still somewhere in the area of $1.3 million. And the likelihood of the municipality funding the rehabilitation without donations or a substantial grant level support or short-term debt allocation at that size is still relatively low. A catch-22 is that if we don't have construction drawings ready to go, the project isn't really considered quote unquote shovel ready. A lot of granting organizations do like shovel ready grant applications to fund. They're more attractive to granting agencies. So that is also a consideration. Couple of other points to note, specifically heritage status. So we've been working under the assumption that the building is indeed designated. That's the way it's been treated since 1985. It was Port Burwell bylaw 8529 that was adopted to support a Part 4 designation. Now, under the Heritage Act of the day, there's a requirement for the bylaw inclusive of reasons to support heritage significance to be registered on title. And that does not appear to have happened. So there's nothing on the title of the property that would denote heritage status. But that's kind of an interesting aside, because even if the building is considered a heritage structure under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, Section 33 of the Heritage Act, as amended, allows the owner of lands or structures to which the designation applies to apply to municipal council for permission to alter heritage defining characteristics. Now, this is interesting because the municipality owns the structure and it would essentially be applying to itself to make these alterations should it wish to do so. So if council should decide at some juncture to rehabilitate the lighthouse using materials and or construction methods that may affect heritage defining characteristics, council may ultimately make an application to itself, to which council may agree, and which would trigger legislative notice and comment periods prior to a formal council decision. Some of this was alluded to in a previous staff report, CAO 3622. I have not appended that to this report, but this has come to council previously at a very high level. The other component of this report is identifying agreement status and providing some information here on liability. So in March of 2023, council entered into an agreement as authorized by bylaw 2023-023 for a license agreement with the abutting property for 2 years that would permit access and use of the land to support works at the lighthouse. So we have utilized that agreement for the stabilization methods that are in place that currently mitigate some of the structural concerns, and do utilize that property because the helical piles are on that lands. The adjacent landowner would be amenable at this time to an extension until the end of 2025. But it is worth noting that should additional time be required to complete the rehab, or if council is desirous of deferring the rehab to another year in the 10-year capital plan, a further extension to the agreement would have to be sought. And if a longer extension is not finalized by the end of the above noted license agreement, the municipality may be in a position to have to remove the lighthouse due to owner's liability. And this is because council's aware of known structural deficiencies, so it's reasonable to assume that any deterioration is likely to continue. And if the stabilization works are going to have to come down because the license agreement lapsed, the building cannot remain standing with known structural deficiencies as it poses owner's liability. So that would be a consideration as part of the entire project, as well as that we have to have access over the land to be able to do the work, to be able to support the lighthouse, at least remaining in status quo until funds can be allocated. So all that being said, staff's recommendation at this time is for the information in this report to be received for information. Should council wish to provide any direction with respect to the rehabilitation scope of work, funding, and or any extension to the active license agreement, it may do so. That is not at this time part of the recommendation formally, but if council wants to provide that direction, then staff are happy to do whatever council would like. So, Mr. Mayor, I will leave it with you and council to discuss, and I'm available for questions.
All right, thank you very much for that report, Thomas. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions, concerns, comments?
You first. You go. See you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Emerson.
So from all you said, one would conclude that we at least have to be shovel ready, or because at some point we either have to move forward if a grant opportunity comes, or should the lease arrangement want to be ended. So we might have to move quickly. So at very least, I think you have to move forward to get everything shovel ready. That's my opinion.
Thank you for that, Councillor Emerson. What it's suggesting is that we're about 40 to 50,000 short of trying to get to that spot where we might be shovel ready. And the question that's going to have to, council's going to have to struggle with is, where are you going to find that at this point going forward? Unless council wants to change its priorities and step away from trying to retire that debt in 25, I don't know where else you're going to find it. So I agree that I think the lighthouse is important culturally. I agree that council really should take the effort to try to mitigate and save this thing, but it has to fall, in my mind, within a certain rank of priorities of where we can afford to do it. And I'm sorry, I don't see it happening before 25. I really don't. And I'll take the hit for it.
Well, that's supplementary then, Mr. Mayor. Like,
yep.
That's all fine and good. Then we should be actively securing an extension on the lease.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that sounds good too.
Either or, right? Like if otherwise you're just
yep.
gonna stand still and let it be removed, right? If we don't start taking some action to prevent either we don't get a lease agreement or we're not ready for a grant opportunity.
I agree with you. That's what I do agree with you. I'm just trying to place it in where it can work into with the plans of what council has already got identified moving forward as a priority. So if we can extend that licensing agreement with the adjacent landlord, that would be fantastic. I'm not suggesting we abandon the lighthouse at all. I'm saying let's do this prudently. Let's schedule it in where we can afford to do this. I don't know where we're going to find $1 or $1.3 million right at the moment, even if we descope what we can do. Unless council wants to change its priorities. And I think discharging that $300,000 elephant off our back annually is good business.
Well, then we
okay.
Yep, I agree. And then we should actively seek extension of that lease agreement because insurance is going to work. Right?
Nope, not a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that.
And I don't know. And then maybe we have to jump up our look for funding game or something because
well, I agree with you, Councillor Emerson. I don't see how the residents or ratepayers of BAM can take this project on alone. I really don't.
All right. Well, we need at least, what was that, 90,000 to make it shovel ready?
We need 90,000 to get the shovel ready. So we need another $40,000 to $50,000 to put into that reserve to get us there. Now, so is that something like is the first priority? Then let's see if we can work to extend our licensing agreement, and then let's work through the 24-25 season. See if we can find the money to put it into that to get a shovel ready project. You know what I'm getting at? To get the architecture and the design done. The design work.
Okay. Well,
does that work for you?
It works for me, but we at the same time we're going to have a backup strategy. Like if
what's the backup strategy?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't get an extension, but we have to work out some kind of plan because you know the landowners. Nobody's mortal.
Well, the backup strategy,
right?
Yeah. The backup strategy, and let's don't go there just yet. Let's have good faith that we can work to secure an extension on the licensing agreement so we can do this in an orderly fashion. Yeah. Deputy Mayor, do you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for staff. I'm wondering I have seen it before, but I'm not sure if it still exists. But is there such a thing as a grant opportunity under the heritage designation for design work? Like, could we be looking for something that would fill that $50,000 shortage in the form of a grant to help us finish that application?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, some of these grants do exist. The Southwest Tourism Leaf Front grant that we had in 2022, that we used for some background studies, would fit. It depends on how regularly those open up. I mean, we do look for these on a fairly regular basis. But some of the intakes currently aren't open, and some of them are sporadic about, when they pop up in a given, electoral cycle. As we get closer to the end of the term for, say, federal and provincial government, we may see more of these discretionary grants come up. There are a couple of heritage grants. I believe there's one through Parks Canada. It's up to $250,000, which would work. But the municipality to receive a lot of these grants also has to identify where the balance of the project funds are coming from. So that would be either a reserve or, debt allocation, whatever that happens to be. And they look for funds in hand, they look for shovel-ready projects and the like. So the more shovel-ready the project is, the better the case will be for a grant application.
Supplementary, through you, Mr. Mayor, so I'm just trying to investigate if we are $40,000 to $50,000 short, but we could apply for funding for the A-Link design itself. Could we, even if there was a municipal allocation required, we would have some funding, right? Like, even if to get the $90,000 design on hand, so that then we can move to the next step.
As long as the grant application is specific for design and doesn't have to incorporate a construction component, because oftentimes the design front runs construction, but then you automatically go into construction as well as part of the entire package. The entire thing is you're rehabbing, you're just not doing the background drawings. So some of these do exist. I mean, there was a grant received for the municipality from SCM for the last round of the municipal local action plan for energy purposes. So we can definitely keep our eyes out for some of those grants, but a lot of them do have a construction component attached to them because they're meant to be, front end to back end, satisfying the entirety of a project.
I'm going to chime in. I think that's prudent to always keep your eyes open for something that may fit and fill that void. So, don't just pass up an opportunity because, you think, well, we don't want to do this. We do want to do this, but we got to do it in an orderly fashion. So thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing that forward. And let us trust that staff are keeping an eye on those kinds of components. Thomas.
Just a quick point of clarification. So I don't have the number officially in front of me, but I believe the unaudited amount in the Lighthouse Reserve is approximately $57,000. So we would need 35 to satisfy the entirety of pre-design through fully completing construction documents. To get to about halfway, we would need about 18 to 20,000 from where we are right now. So that would get us closer to shovel ready. It'd also allow us to figure out a more accurate estimate, and that may bring that 1.5 million number down a little bit. So as long as we have approximately $20,000 allocated to this, we can proceed with some form of construction document development.
That's fine. Thank you for that. Same thing, budgets, deliberations are ongoing, but I'm not sure where you'll find the extra 20 at this point. That's all. Any other questions, comments? Dan, is your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Yes, sir. And I am unmuted through you. To Thomas, so just to clarify, it is now the lighthouse is not registered historical.
Based upon the bylaw not being on title, it does bring it into question. And the reason why I won't say specifically that it is not registered is because we've been treating it like it is for the better part of the last 38 years, and intent does carry some weight. So just food for thought from that perspective for council, but I won't comment on that any further because I'm not a solicitor and I don't have that legal information in front of me on that.
We did have a solicitor report though, correct?
Yes, that was discussed and closed.
So, if I may, Mr. Mayor, so the design that we're thinking about fully historical restoration. Is that correct?
I think what you're suggesting, originally we were talking about the full meal deal, right? Roof, windows, doors, everything. Adhering to the historic property. The heritage designation.
Heritage designation.
Yeah.
Because price-wise, there could be a huge difference if we restore it heritage, or if we just build a beautiful lighthouse. There could, price-wise, it could be a huge difference to the ratepayer Bayham, correct? And so I am not in favor of spending any money right now either. Just to echo your words, Mr. Mayor. I do have a thought though. If we have to completely disassemble this building anyway, because the foundation has to be completely rebuilt the way I as per the report, would it be prudent to spend the money that's there to disassemble it and store it properly before it rots any further? The interior structure is what's going to get saved and get reused. If I don't know much about construction, but that's what would get saved. And obviously the top piece, right? So right now it's leaking water, and yeah, it's just a thought. As it is rotting, and it will rot through 2025, right? So
good point. The point, I think, again, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not pretending to be. I would suggest that if you are to take it down and store it, it would have to be stored inside someplace to keep the moisture and everything off it, and then replaced and rebuilt. I'm not sure that the reworking of this particular facility is contemplating a complete disassembly. I just don't know, Dan, at this point. So, but it's definitely worth keeping in the back of our minds that this may be the path going forward. I don't know if it is at this point. I think there's still enough will of council to do something, but just not today. Let's stay on track with what we've got planned. That's my advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We need to be prudent. We need to engage our public. We need to engage senior levels of government to help us out on this one. But I still think we got to do this after we get rid of that other monkey off our back. Yeah. Anyone else? Any comments, questions? They disappeared on us. All I see is Councillor Froze.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, I have my hand up. If
Thank
I
you.
may. Yeah, just a couple of comments. After reading the report, and I do kind of echo our Thomas's comments that there really isn't a lot of significant cost savings when it comes to changing the scope of the work in terms of the cladding, the outside. I do have some concerns about, not refurbishing windows and ventilation. I think these things they really need to stay in there. I think we need to really take a look at this structure as it was intended as a historical building. But I also echo the Mayor and Councillor Emerson, and Councillor Froze's concerns of the fact that the funding is not there right now. We have an opportunity to I think we have to aggressively look for opportunities to help with the funding on this one, absolutely. But I do have some concerns about looking at any methods of cost savings. I would rather see it restored historically. That's just my personal opinion. But I also echo Councillor Emerson's comments that we really need to get on the licensing agreement. So if nothing else is done tonight, I would second his recommendation to have those conversations with the landowners, the abutting landowners, and see if we can get that agreement extended.
Thank you for those comments. I certainly appreciate them. The one caveat that I would put forward regarding the cladding issue, yes, I would agree that by the time if it requires structural support, if you're talking about hardy board, that's one thing, but it's the cost down the road. You're not going to be repainting this thing every 5 years. Something to keep in mind. That's an operational side. Just for consideration. We're not going to solve the problem tonight, but it's just pieces of the puzzle to put it all together for consideration. Okay, any other comments? Questions? Megan, have you gotten sufficient direction there to craft a motion?
Yes, Thomas is going to take it.
Oh, good for him.
That report CAO 0324, report Burwell Lighthouse status and costing update be received for information, and that council direct continued discussion with the abutting landowner to extend the existing license agreement in support of the continued stabilization and rehabilitation of the lighthouse.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor will move second. I think I see Councillor Froze's hand up. Will second. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, I see everyone's hands up. Thank you. That's carried. Brings us to section 14, the bylaws. So we have bylaw number 24004. Bylaw to provide for drainage works for the municipality of BAM and the county of Elgin, known as Peters Drain Branch B. Bylaw number 2024-005, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a subdivision agreement between 1985763 Ontario Inc. and the Corporation Municipality of BAM to provide for the development of a plan of subdivision known as the Sandytown Road Subdivision, Village of Stratfordville, Municipality of BAM, 39 lots. And bylaw number Z768-2024, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z456-2003 as amended. McAloney. Any questions regarding the bylaws? If not, I await the question.
So we have two motions here just because the drainage bylaw just has two readings. So the first motion is that bylaw number 2024-004 be read a first and second time.
Do we have a mover and seconder for that? We have Councillor Emerson, we have Deputy Mayor Weiser. All in favor? We have it's carried. Okay, second.
That bylaw numbers 2024-005 and Z768-2024 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Mover and seconder for those, please. Deputy Mayor Weiser, Councillor Emerson, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Which brings us down to section 16, other business. We have the item A, draft waterfront advisory committee minutes from January 15th, 2024. Do you want to deal with these together?
I would suggest that.
And item B, the draft museum advisory committee minutes of January the 17th, 2024. Does anyone have any questions or concerns regarding these minutes? Points of clarification? Seeing none. Megan, would you please call the question?
That the draft minutes from the Waterfront Advisory Committee meeting held January 15th, 2024, and the draft minutes from the Museum Advisory Committee meeting held January 17th, 2024, be received for information.
All, mover and seconder, please. Deputy, excuse me, I see Councilor Froze's hand up and Deputy Mayor Weiser's hand up. So, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item C, the Museum Advisory Committee recommendation to council. Any discussion?
Your worship, would you like me to read the motion that Museum Advisory Committee passed to council?
Yes, it's part of the background, please.
From the January 17th meeting, there was one resolution that they wanted to pass on to council, and it reads as that further to memo MAC 0224, the Museum Advisory Committee requests council to include the Museum Advisory Committee in the review process regarding the lighthouse remediation alternatives prior to council's consideration.
All right, thank you for that. Discussion. Deputy Mayor Weiser.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point of clarification, if I could, with staff. Museum Advisory Committee is just that, correct? Are they a commenting body or are they an advisory committee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, the Museum Advisory Committee, in their terms of reference, oversees general operations and provides comment on operational matters for the lighthouse and for the museum itself. We do circulate capital to them as information, and they do provide input for budgetary purposes on capital as well. They are an advisory committee, but they do deal primarily with operations. This matter, the rehabilitation, is a capital matter, but council does have the ability to refer information to the committee or to seek their input whenever they deem it appropriate. So they can provide comment as well as part of their advisory role should council direct it.
Okay. Further discussion, questions?
To you, Mr. Mayor, I think that's probably a good idea to give some ownership of ideas. I don't know, I think it's advisory committee, they're not deciding, I guess. Right?
You're correct. The decision lies with
We should
council.
look for outside opinion when we come to rehabilitating this thing.
Yes, Thomas?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, if council wishes, what they can do is they could refer the report from tonight's meeting 0324 to the next meeting of the Museum's Advisory Committee for information and discussion of alternatives. Since council isn't making any decisions tonight on how best to proceed with methods, materials, scope, what have you, there may be time for the committee to address it at their next regular meeting prior to council having to make a decision in that regard. So that can come back to council in Q2. Just an idea.
I think it's a prudent idea. That's fine. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So the report is public. Could not the Museum Advisory Committee review that report and make comment on that report and provide comment back to council? Like, they're already able to do that. I'm just curious, so the formality would be that we would, that staff would just provide that report that's already public and on the agenda?
The way that it would work would be there'd be a draft, either a draft memo or a resolution from council back to the committee, and appended to that would be the staff report. So it's just provided for ease and for transparency, so they don't have to go hunting for it. It's the same thing that we do with council when there's a myriad of staff reports on a matter. We reference them and put excerpts in, or we attach them. for information purposes to future reports. So we'd likely include it as an attachment to a memo.
Supplementary, then I would be amenable to that. So I'm happy to put that motion forward that we instead of receive for information.
All right,
or-
Thomas, you're gonna have to amend your motion.
I think Megan has this one.
Madam Clerk.
So we could propose a motion that the recommendation from the Museum Advisory Committee from the January 17th, 2024 meeting be received for information, and that report CAO 0324 be referred to the Museum Advisory Committee for comment.
All right. Does that satisfy you, Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is there any way we could include and any future reports as it relates to the lighthouse rehabilitation?
If you want to tie your hands, you certainly can.
Just a quick note that the committee does meet 4 times a year, so there may be a special meeting may have to be called depending on what council is referring to the committee, or there may be a delay in getting comment because the meeting is once every 3 months.
I think it would be more prudent, Deputy Mayor, that council has discretionary authority to decide what it wants to share with the committee and with what not. As you say, they're already printed or public documents. This is a case where this particular report, yeah, let's send it through and get some advice. That's what their role is. They've asked to do it. But keep in mind, the ultimate decision lies with those around the horseshoe.
And if I can
So-
just add through you, your worship, in general, because of this ongoing topic, we usually include a topic of the lighthouse in each of our museum meetings. And either way, usually.
It's fine.
So, yeah, so.
Mover and
through-
seconder, please.
Okay.
Councilor Emerson.
Oh,
I just think we're
Councilor
formalizing-
Froze, is your hand up? Okay, I've got some connectivity issues here. I'm not hearing you all the way through.
Your worship, sorry, I think we were just patchy on our end here too. So I was believing that it's moved by Deputy Mayor Weisler, and she was confirming the language.
All right, okay. Okay. Then Councilor Emerson, are you seconding that?
Sure. Yes. Yes,
All right. Let's call the question then. All in favor? Really?
Sure, I don't know. Dan's hand's up.
You did call all in favor, so.
No, we're calling the question. All in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, any opposed? Then it's carried. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Where does that leave us, Megan?
Bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, that confirming bylaw number 2024-006 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Who wants to move that? Deputy Mayor Weiser will move. Who's willing to second? Councilor Emerson will second. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. I look forward to the next bylaw that's coming forward.
And adjournment is that the council meeting be adjourned at 8:59 PM.
Mover and seconder, please. I think Councilor Froze has his hand up and Councilor Emerson is seconding that. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for taking an interest in local governance. Be well.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good night.
Night. Damn.